Hi, sixth graders. How you doing? Today we're going to look at the factors that led to rise in the power of kingdoms within Europe during the Middle Ages, especially the economic factors that really led to kingdoms to get more and more power, which is eventually going to lead to the rise of nation states within Europe. So we're going to see that by the uh, middle of the Middle Ages or the High Middle Ages, um, the which is about the year 1000, the year 1300. Um, Improvements in farming techniques led to surpluses in food. And as we learned with the timeline of civilization, when you have extra food, that leads to social divisions. And this starts happening throughout Europe. Their population goes up and their economy expands. One of the big things to come out of this is the merchant class, a new group of people who make money by buying and selling and trading items. And they go and travel throughout Europe and eventually into parts of Asia and into parts of Africa and buy and sell goods throughout the world. And as these people are traveling, they need places to stop to buy, sell, and trade. And along their routes that they go and travel and trade, emerge more towns. And these towns are going to have their populations go up and up and up as more trade is coming through it. And as these small towns expand, we're going to see that a lot of peasants who were living in fiefdoms of vassals and lords start saying, well, instead of like living on this farm in horrible conditions, I can go live in this town and try to work to serve the merchant class and buy, sell, and trade my services. So we see social divisions become much more complex in Europe, where we see now carpenters, blacksmiths, artisans, the merchants themselves start to take shape in each of these different towns. And they make stuff that they can then sell to the merchants. And you'll even see some peasants who are successful will build their own farms connected to these small towns that will now compete against these feudal manors. So we're going to see that the whole feudal system, where you had that small group that had all the power and control of the land, now that starts getting spread out. But this isn't actually horrible for the nobility, for the feudal lords, because there's so much money being made through the trade and through their surplus of food that they don't have to now have fiefdoms made on their land and have vassals take control and manage their land. Instead, they can have all the land and make all the money and not have to split up with all these vassals. And instead, they start relying more and more on paying for their services rather than lending out their land through fiefdoms. So, we're going to see that through this, that whole system of feudalism is going to start to decline during this time period. And in its place, we're going to see that the kings, who were at the top of the feudal ladder but didn't really have a ton of power, are going to become more and more powerful. Um, Money rises to the top, and this money is going to make kings wealthier. And through that wealth, instead of depending on the feudal system to get military support, they start basically buying armies, hiring soldiers, building bigger and bigger armies, using the money to get better weapons that can counter the smaller groups of militaries run by vassals and knights, including using the longbow and pikes and catapults. And this gives the kings the ability to take control of all of the separate fiefdoms within their kingdom and solidify their control. So instead of like that one powerful lord who kind of is competing with all the other ones, now the king runs everything. And this gives them control over the nobles. The nobles are still there and they're still doing well. It's just now they have to answer to the king a lot more. And the merchant class, the people in the towns, all these people are willing to pay taxes to the king for the same reason why people are willing to live in the land and pay taxes to the vassals and lords for protection. And we're going to see that these kingdoms are going to get bigger and bigger as individual fiefdoms are now absorbed under the auspice of the one powerful king. And by 1500, we're going to see that four major kingdoms or four major nation states are going to emerge, and these nation states will eventually dominate European history. Um, and that would be England, France, Spain, and Russia. We'll explore a lot more of that as we go on, but let's wrap up the lesson. Much of the prosperity in Middle Ages in Europe came from expanding trade into new areas with new people into new professions. So, what are some ways that expanding trade into new areas of the world or in new professions helps our economy today? Is it a good thing to expand trade? How does it benefit us? I'm looking forward to reading your answers. Have a great one. Bye bye.